Welcome back to Portfoliotics 1.0. This is our fourth lesson in our first project. In this lesson, we are going to be treating our problem statement by looking into the effects of the 15% discount on the profitability margin of the business, and also the sales cannibalization, and lastly, the customer segment. As you all know that in any business, profit is very essential. The higher the profits, the more flourished the business will be. Let's just take, for instance, you open a coffee shop and you are selling a cup of coffee, let's say for $2, and your cost of production per cup is $1, meaning that your profit margin is $1 per cup. You might be selling about, let's say, 10 cups in a day, meaning that per day you're having a gain of $10 in a day. However, let's say after you introduce some discounts to your product, your sales increase, let's say 15, you are selling 15 cups per day, and let's say maybe a discount of 25%, which gives $1.5 per cup. That is, a cup now costs $1.5. If a cup costs $1.5, definitely your gain per cup becomes 50 cents. That is, it drops from $1 to 50 cents. So multiply by 15. This gives about $7.5 per day. As we can see, your 25% discount increases your sales up from 10 to 15. However, the profit margin, your profit margin doesn't have as in decreases actually. When you are selling it at a full price, you are gaining about $10. When you are selling at the discounted price, you are getting about $7.5. However, for this particular scenario, the discount here is as in shrinking the margin, the profit margin. But somehow, in other way around, your discount might also be increasing your sales. As in it might also be increasing your profit margin as it increases your sales. So we are going to verify if this 15% discount on our business is cutting down our margin or increasing it. So we take a look at that using some MySQL queries. Then secondly, the sales cannibalization. As we earlier explained on that, cannibalization happens whenever customers that do buy in a full product price deviate or migrate to discount-based customer. That is, they only buy a product whenever it's being discounted. So we are going to be looking at that, because a sales being cannibalized means that you are not having a growing customer base, which might affect your business in the long run. So we are going to look at that, whether the 15% discount is just converting our full-time customer or our loyal customer to discounted based customer. Then finally, we are going to be looking at the customer segments, those type of customers that are buying those 15% discounted products. Are they new customer or our old customers? So we are going to be taking a look at that. So let us move on to our MySQL interface and see what we have. Here's the MySQL interface. So for the first analysis that we want to do here, which is the product profits analysis, we're going to be taking a look at how the 50% discounts affect the products. As you all know that profits is being calculated as, that is profits. It's a function of the selling price, the cost price, and when is a discount. When there is a discount, we also include discount to the equation. Profit is the sales, that is the sale price or the selling price minus the cost price. But whenever there is a discount, you also include that discounted price in there, that is with the discounts. So the total profits, that will be multiplied by the quantity sold to get the total profits, multiplied by the quantity sold. This will give us the total profits being gained, or total margin being gained by our products. The sales price here for our own scenario is same thing as the unit price. That is the cost of a unit price of a product. So we are going to be looking into it. So how can we achieve this using MySQL query? Let's move ahead and do that. We shall be using two tables to achieve that. That is the transaction table and the product table. Let's say from our transaction table, from transaction, let's alias it as T. We are joining it with the product table. Let's alias that as P. And the value, the unique value that is common to the two, is the product purchased and the product ID. That is product purchased when is equals to the product ID. So let's see if this join statement works correctly first before moving on. Let's limit this to, let's say, the first 5 values. We are limiting to first 5. So this will be Control Enter, and let's see what we have. Okay, this is our transaction table. Whenever you're using join statements in MySQL specifically, join ordinarily means left join. So, but when you want to do inner join or right join, you will specify that. But when you just write ordinary join, it means you are left joining the tables together. That is, the table here from transaction will be in the left, while the other table that you join with will be in the right. And as you can see, this is our transaction table ranging from the left to the right. This is where the product ID, that is our product table, started from. So, and let's verify that till the end. Yeah, it's well as an spelled out. All right, right to the cost price. So let us select the major fields that will be useful for this particular analysis. Part of the feed that we'll be using here, we'll be using the transaction timestamp feed, as this will enable us to group our analysis monthly. In our data set, we're having November, December, January as in entries. So for us to group it by month base, we will need the transaction timestamp. So let's start by saying the date format. We'll format that date format of transaction timestamp. Transaction timestamp. Something like this. We should format it in year month format. Year month. Something like this. Let's call this one, alias it as a sales month, comma. Then the total transaction also will be quite useful here. That is the total transaction per month. That will be the count of every transaction in a month. We can call this total transaction. So we can also check the average total sales, that is the average profit, I mean, in a month, by using the average clause here, by saying average, the average, that is the unit price average, minus the discounted price, then minus the cost price, then afterward we'll multiply that with the total quantity sold. That is the quantity sold. So we can alias this as average transaction margin. Then we can also find the total profits per month. That is the total profits being gained in November, in December, and in January. As this will enable us to compare and contrast if this 15% discount, because 15% discount was being rolled out on all products in January, we'll compare the January total margin, that is the total profits, compared with the November and December, whether it's increasing or decreasing. So we'll need the sum statement over here. Let me just simply copy this and paste it. Copy V. So this is our total transaction or total transaction margin. You can call it total transaction margin. So since we are categorizing, as in we are grouping them based on months, we also need the group statement over here. But before that, we're only selecting for all those months, right? So we also need a where clause here by saying where date format, is this. Let me just simply copy it. That is time transaction. The date format should be in this format. Date format. Okay. Let me arrange that well. Yeah. When it is in starting from November 2024. Also December 2024, 12, up to January 2025. January 2025. All right. So let's group by the dates, the transaction timestamp. I mean, that is, we are grouping it by transaction timestamp. Then we can also order this by the sales month so that they will be in ascending order. That is from November, December to January. All right. Here is our query to calculate the profitability impact by month. So let's run this and see what we have. Control and enter. Oops. It doesn't return anything. Let's see where we are getting things wrong. Okay, it seems like we're having some issue with our query over here. Let's try to figure that out. Okay. Year and month. Since we are calculating with months, so it won't be in caps. It will be in as in a lowercase, and month and month. So let's rerun our code and see what we have. Control enter. All right. Here is the table for the months. Sales months starting from November, December, and January. This is the total transaction made. In November, about 450 being made, transaction being made. 499, close to 500 sales in December. While in January, there is a drop in total transaction, like about 447. Differences of 30 compared to as in November sales. Then the average transaction, as you can see, the transaction margin, that is the average profit being made. There is a trend in this place, as you can see, from 186 to 208 to 250. There's an high, as in high margin, high profits being made in January, even though the total transaction being made falls. This might give us some intuition that maybe there are some products in our in our carts that are performing more better. That is, there are some high margin products that are performing more better. That's, take for instance, you have a business, and let's say your business is selling, let's say, iPhone, and also selling, let's say, textbooks and the likes. The price, let's say for instance, you sold 2 iPhone maybe per day, and then compared to, let's say, you sold about, let's say, 40 textbooks in that same day, the price for iPhone, which is an high margin product, doubled or multiples of what of the textbooks being sold. It will cover those, even though you are not selling as in the textbooks to some extent, it will have covered those losses. So meaning that whenever you have an high margin product in your products, their profit might be covering both the cost and the profits of the other goods. So from here we can perceive that from here, because you have what total transaction being made is very low compared to the previous months. However, the margin, as in the profit being made, is higher. Likewise, the total transaction margin here, as you can see, for January, in January, about 1 million plus sales, as in profits, was being generated. So from here, we can simply look inward to know those particular goods that are performing well in our product carts. So from there, we'll try to know the product category performance of each product in our carts. So for us to do this, we are going to use the product and transaction table again. Let me just simply copy this and paste over here. From transaction to this and this. Also, we are grouping by month. So let's say Ctrl C, and let's simply paste it here. All right. So the select statement, the main column here that we'll be selecting, also includes the sales months. We also need some total transaction, the average unit price, just like as in the previous table. And the only difference here will just be the category. We'll include the category with in our query. So let's simply do this by, let's copy the inputs here and copy, then paste. So let's simply paste it here. Let me arrange that. Select. As I said earlier, that we are including the category, that is the product category column, that is the category. So that's the only difference. So we'll be including the category here. This one has comma. All right. So now let us group by. In this scenario, we are grouping by the product categories and the sales months, as in sales months over here, which is our transaction timestamp. So we are grouping by that by saying group by statement, group by sales months and the products category. Then we're also ordering by that same sales month and category. Order by. We're ordering by sales months and the product category. We can as in simply alias as in the product category as something, so that it might also make our work easier. We can say p dot category should be, let's alias it as our category or products category. Products category. So now we are simply grouping by this and ordering by this. All right. Let's simply run our query and see what we'll have. Control Enter. All right. Here is our table. As you can see, we have the sales months, transaction, average transaction, total price, and the products category. Let me simply rearrange it so that it will be more meaningful by putting it, let's say, after the sales months. We can put this in here like this and rearrange this very well in a better way. All right. So let us rerun that. Control Enter. All right. This is our sales being made with respect to the product categories. As you can see, we have 4 unique products being sold in our store. We have the books, the electronics, fashion, home appliances. As you can see, those are the 4. The remaining one, books, electronics, fashion, home appliances, like that. So in November, the numbers of books being sold are 52 in total. And the average transaction margin, that is the profits being made, the average profits being made, is about $34. While the total transaction, that is the total profits being made, total transaction margin, I mean, about $1,808 being made, which is quite as in low compared to electronics sales in that same month, about 174 and the likes. While for the fashion, we have 117, meaning that in November 2024, electronics has the highest sales transaction. Then let's look also into the next month, which is December. Books drops by about, let's say, 6 transactions, as in about 6 numbers, like from 52 to 46, while the electronics, it rose from 174 to 234. That's a good, as in good improvement. While for the fashion, also drops with some, like, let's say 5, with about 5. Then the home appliances also, there's no any increment. 107 in the previous month, 107, same thing in the current month, that is December. Then looking at it in January, when we roll out our 15% discount on all products, the 15% discount actually is not affecting the, as in is negatively affecting the book sales, because as we can see, from 52 in November to 46 in December and to 33 in January, meaning that the book sales is really dropping, is really decreasing. We can see the trend. Then the electronics, 174, 234, and 193. That means that we sold the highest number of electronics in December, while in January, the price, as in the numbers of transactions being made, reduces with some values, although not drastically reduction. So for the fashion, we have, as in, some increments here, about, like, as in 7 transaction, as in 7 additional transaction was made, because fashion here is 122 and here is 119. Then to the home appliances also, it also drops with some, as in, or some values. This shows us, as in this table, it shows us that our major revenue, or our most revenue, is coming out from these 2 categories of products: electronics, basically, followed by the home appliances. As you can see, home appliances is also, as in, appreciating compared to other kind of products. And looking at the average transaction margin, that is the average profit being made, we can see that electronics is the one having the highest margin, 465 here in January, 365 here in December, while 371 here in electronics, as in November, I mean. So that shows some little bit trend. But let us still look inward to the second problem that you are trying to figure out. That is, this sales that you are making, is it, as in, is the 15% discount cannibalizing our products? We want to verify that. Is it that we are just, as in, our loyal customers, are they, is the 15% discount converting them from being a loyal customer to bargain chased or bargain hunter customers? That is discount-based customer alone, that they only buy whenever we have what? Discounts on our products. So for us to do this, we'll be using some common table expression to do that, and some select statements and some join statements in there. And we'll also be using some clauses, like, as in, like case when, maximum, and the likes. So let's go ahead and tackle that. So let's define CTE. Let's say for the customer, as we know that we shall be needing the transaction table and customer table. Let's simply say from transaction as T, we are joining it, that is left join with the customer. Let's say C, the customer table. Then the common key to the two is the customer ID and customer ID. Customer ID. One beautiful thing about MySQL is that it's less, as in, case sensitive. Even though the customer ID field is being written as capital letter and the ID is being written as uppercase and the likes, but you can write it, as in, with all lowercase, and you won't have any issue. So customer ID. So let's simply check if this has been selected properly before moving on with the other parts of the query. Let's limit it to, let's say, the first 5 entries. Control Enter. All right, here's our transaction table. transaction, okay, and customer ID, that is the customer's table, starts from here. All right, email verified is complete. So let's go ahead with creating our CTE. So what are we selecting here? We are selecting the customer ID. The customer ID. Also, we'll be selecting the customer name. We'll need it. And also the date formatting, as in the transaction timestamp. Let me simply just as in copy it from these parts. The date format. Simply copy it and paste it over here. All right. Comma. We can simply give this one as sales month. Then we also need we also count the numbers of as in transaction being made. That is, we are counting the transaction being made, the unique transaction being made using the unique ID. Let's call this one transactions. All right. Then we are also using the where statement, and we're also grouping by. So let me simply copy it from here, because we are still following the same pattern. That is, we want to know those customer that bought our products with their name and the time they bought it in every month. So let me simply paste this over here. So then we are grouping by, but this time around we group by the customer ID, the customer ID, the customer name, and also the dates, the transaction timestamp. We are grouping by the 3 feeds. All right. So we can create our CTE now by simply saying with, we can name the table as in a CTE is just a temporary table being created so that you can reuse it in your query. But after using it in that query, it won't as an appear as a separate table or as a separate view on in our table actually. So with, let's call the table as in the temporary table customer activity table. Let's say customer activities. Let's name it as this. Then let's close the CTE here. All right. We can simply view this. You have an error. Okay. Let's firstly view what we just selected before making it as a temporary table. Let's simply check that by Control Enter. All right, this is what we just did. The customer ID, the name, the sales points, and the transactions. That is, this particular customer with this ID 060 with his name in January bought about 3, as in made 3 transactions. He bought 3 products from us in January. So let's return this statement over here. And now let us select it. As in, let's extract some of these details as our new table. So what are we extracting here? Now like this, we want to extract the sales at the customer ID, their name, their previous as in transaction, and also their transaction being made in January. We want to know the numbers of transactions per customer made in January, as this will help us to know those customers that are really buying in January compared with the other months. So let us just write this, as in let's write the query to see what we are trying to figure out over there. Let's select this table that we just created, this temporary table, customer activity. We are selecting it by saying from customer activity. We want to use it in this new statements. Let's alias that as CA. That is from this table. We want to select some of the, make some as in queries on it. So from this table, let's select, we are selecting the customer ID. That is this customer ID. we are selecting the customer ID, then the customer name also. Then also we want to check those sales, as in those transactions being made by the customer in the previous month. If the customer have some sales being made, as in some transaction being made in the previous month, we can judge that, okay, this particular customer is our loyal customer. He has been buying from November, December, then also bought in January. But if it's other way around, that the customer only buy or have a transaction entry only in January without buying from November, December, we know that the customer might be drive in to buy our product due to our 15% discount. So for us to do this, we'll be using the max, that is the maximum transaction being made by the customer. We'll be using the case statements and the max statements. Let's simply have a case statement here. When we have our CA, that is our table, the sales month, which is this. If the sales month is in, let's say he has been buying from November, that is 11, and 2024 December, then we can simply say this customer is loyal to us by picking the transaction table, by returning the numbers of transactions being made by that customer, that is a loyal customer, else return 0. What this particular line of query is doing here is that, just like an if statement in Python, we use case statement in MySQL. Select if, when, as in I'm just saying if, but as in its case, when the sales month, that is this particular month, starting from November to January 2025. But here, the sales month, if the sales month, as in we are constraining it, we are limiting it to only sales being made in this, as in November and December. If it's in these 2 months, return the transactions being made, that is the numbers of transactions being made, whether 2, 4, 5, like that. Else, that is if there's no any sales being made by that customer in those 2 months, November, December, return 0, that is null, nothing, as in 0 transaction being made by that customer, meaning that the customer is only buying in January. So let us end it here and call it, and let's have the alias, let's say this is the previous transactions. So let's have another statement also for those customer that only buy in January. So let me just simply copy this and do a little adjustments for sales in January alone. So if this equals, let's say, if this equals sales made in January, transaction made in January alone, then you should return the transactions, else you should return 0. Then let us name this as January transaction. That is only transaction being made in January. All right, so this one has comma. So from here, we can also group by. You can use as a group by statement to group the customer ID and the names of those customers, and also order it by January transaction so that we can see those customers that only bought goods in January. So those customers are those potential customers who are fishing out that maybe it might be our discount that drive them into buying from us. So let's group by simply saying group by. We are grouping by the customer ID and the customer name. Then we are ordering by only January transactions. Let's do that in descending order so that we can see the highest transaction being made per customer in January. All right, here is our full statement over here. Here's our CTE, which is this table. Then we are selecting from this particular table the customer ID and those customers that bought in previous months, that is November and December, and also those customers that only buys in January. So let's run this statement and see what we have. Control Enter. All right. As you can see, our table has been divided to customer ID, name, the previous transactions, and what general transactions. Take for instance this first customer over here with this customer ID 95 with this name, July Goodman. The previous transactions, that is for this previous month, November and December, he made no sales. But in January, this customer made about 6 transactions. It's a potential as in clue to us that maybe this particular customer is being forced to buy due to our 15% discount. Who knows? But we will verify that later on. Likewise, this particular customer also has 0, and in January has about 5 products being purchased and the likes. So this will give us hints on those customers. We can simply visualize this, the previous transactions and the January transaction, to know that whether this 15% discount is cannibalizing our sales or not. And this is a potential clue on that. Whenever we see a customer, November, he did not buy from us. December, he did not buy from us. But when we lose out our 15% discount in January, he bought our products. It might be due to the discounts that our discount might attract he or she to purchase our products. So next on, let's move to the customer segment analysis to know those customers, those real customers that are really buying our product, that are genuine customer, they are loyal customer to our products. So we need to classify them. We need to segment them. For us to do this, we'll be using the customer and the transaction table again. So let's simply still select those table. That is from transaction as T. We are selecting that. So let's join it with the customer table. The customer, let's say C, on where they meet together, which is the customer ID, transaction, customer ID, where it equals to the customer ID here, where they are equal. And also let's select those those dates also. Let me just simply copy this and paste, since we are still looking inward to November, December sales. So let's simply copy that and paste over here. All right. So, but before doing that, whenever you are joining a statement, verify if this particular, whenever you are joining a table, 2 tables together or more, verify if they are correctly being joined before performing any query on it. So let us verify that by simply limiting it to, let's say, the first five entries. Control Enter. These are transaction days. Okay. It ends in the region table, as in the region feed. Then customer ID starts from there. All right, you are good to go. So where are dates transaction time equals all this. All right. So let us select some of the feeds that will be useful for us here to segment our customer. In here also, we shall be using the case statements also to classify them. And one good thing here is that for us to classify those new customer from old customer is quite easy. We can differentiate them from their dates of registrations. That is, whenever we have a customer that have registered for us, for some years back, we simply know that, okay, this customer has been with us for a while. And then for the new customers, those are the customers that only have their date of registration. They only register with us, purchasing from us from January only. So we'll try to figure that out by using a case statement. So to do that, let's have since we are also we will be using the transaction timestamp here, so we'll need that comma. Then let's use the case statements. We define our case statements here when using the date of registration. Actually, when the customer date of registration, the date of registration of the customer, let's say, is less than the transaction timestamp. That is, when transaction timestamp simply means the transaction being made, the time of their transaction, the day or the dates that they purchase something from us. They purchase a product from us. So if it is less than that, we know that definitely that particular customer is our returning customer. That is, the date of registration is less than what the date of what of their transaction timestamp. It means they are returning customer. So let's simply put in that if this is less than this, let's alias this as sales months. Then if this is less than this, then we can simply say they are returning customer. Let's say returning customer. Else, definitely if it doesn't meet up that criteria, surely they are our new customers, because they only register with us in January. So from there we can end the statement, and let's call the column the feed customer type. All right, that's our define as in our key statement for that. Also, let us see unique customers that purchase our products in each month. To do this, we can use our counts and distinct clauses. That is, we only need the distinct customer that bought those products at those moments. So by saying the instinct, we're using the distinct customer's ID. Let's say this is our customer count. Then also we are counting for the other one, which is as in the numbers of transactions being made by each customers. We later group by all this as in all these parameters. They will be useful when we are grouping by the transaction ID as the total transactions, and also the number of products being purchased by each customer, so as to know whether it's the 15% discount that make them buy more or less. That's one, which is our quantity. So as, let's say, the total units sold, can put it in that way. So now after doing that, let us group by. Our group by statement here will be, we are grouping by the sales month, that is November, December, January, and the customer type, whether they are new customer or old customers. So let's group by. We are grouping by the sales months and the customer type. Also, let's order that by, that is, we want to arrange it by the sales months, and so that it will be in ascending order sequentially. That is the sales months and the customer type. All right, so let's run this query and see what we have. Unknown transaction ID. That means that there's an error in the spelling over there. Transaction ID feed. Where is that? Transaction. All right, let's run that and see what we have. Okay, as you can see here, this gives a clear overview on how our sales is going. In November, we have some new customers, about 439 customers, and they made about 450 transactions, and the total units sold of the product being made is what, 790. Then for December, the new customer here, they are as in the increase. We are gaining as in larger customer base, about 485. Then total transaction being made by them also increases. Then the units sold, as in that is the quantity of as in products being sold, is what, 822. Whereas in January, when we roll out our 15% discounts, the customer count decreases. That's as in a red flag over there, meaning that majority of those people buying our products are our returning customer, because as in the ratio in which the returning, as in the new customers, increases in January, despite the fact of our 15% discounts is what is reducing. But this our new customer also, there's something fishy there. The total transaction being made by them is 447. Why the total units sold, that is the total numbers of products sold by, as in for them, rose towards from 822 in the previous month, which is December, to 852. It increased compared to the other 2 months over here, 790 and 822. Meaning that our new customer leveraged that new discount towards to buy more. They bought more of our products due to our 15% discount towards by leveraging on that to buy more products. So we have like about 852 units of products being sold in January alone. And even though the new discount doesn't really drag new customer to some extent, it doesn't really drag, because if you check at the trend of the customer count, we can find out that compared to the other 2 months, this as January entry is 336, which is quite low. Meaning that more of our returning customer are also purchasing, leveraging on that our 15% discount product. 15% discounts. They're also leveraging on that to buy more products also. So this gives us some overview on what we are really doing. So with all these tables, they will be very useful when we start our data visualization using Power BI. And for us to save a table we can create a view. View is just a virtual table. Whenever there's any changes in our basic table, let's say for instance we change some parameters here, or we make a new entry to the customer table or the product table or transaction table, any view being made from those tables will also be automatically updated when we update our views. So, and views, the view that we'll be making here will be making a multi-table view, because this particular scenario, we are joining multiple tables together. We don't only have a single table for our join, for our process. So we'll be using a multi-table view. So starting from the first query here, calculating the profitability impact. So let us create a view. Create view. Let's call the view profitability impact. Profitability impact. Creating this view as this. So, and let's run that. It's just quite easy in creating view. Control Enter. So let's refresh this and check. From our view table, from our view column here, we can see that the profitability impact table has been created. As the major reason why we are creating all these tables is that whenever we connect our MySQL with Power BI, it will be easily recognized. A view table will be easily recognized by Power BI as as a table. Instead of us using another DAX, DAX statement or DAX expression to roll and dice our data set again, we can simply just simplify the process in MySQL, then using view tables, that is the virtual table, then connect it seamlessly with our Power BI. So let us do that for the remaining tables that we've created also. So we can also do it for the product performance, but here let's call it the product category performance here. Products category performance. All right, we can simply run that by simply Control Enter, and let's refresh our view. All right, you have two views here: profitability impact and the product category performance. So let's move on with the other tables also, like the sales cannibalization. So we can also create a view for that by simply calling it sales cannibalization. Sales cannibalization. Simply click Control Enter, and let's refresh this to see. All right, we have that in there. Then lastly, for our customer segments, the customer segments, Control enter. So the customer segment, let's also call it customer segment view. Customer segment view, control enter. All right, all our views are being created. So we can see that we have about 4 of them. So these are the major key questions that our CEO is willing to know. We can, as in moving this to Power BI, we can also find other metrics, other valuable metrics to measure whether the 15% discount is affecting our sales or not, is increasing it or not, using other metrics that we will discuss later in the next video. But these are the key major metrics that we need to, as in, hold on to for now. So in our next video, we'll be looking inward on how to connect MySQL or SQL into Power BI, so that whenever we have any new entries in our MySQL database, it will be automatically updated in our Power BI visuals. Thank you for listening. See you in the next video.